Hi, and we are back again with our next speaker, which is Natalia. Hi, Natalia. How are you doing? You are on mute, Natalia.
Sorry about that. It's something that happens often nowadays. How are you, Sherry? I'm
Fine,
the,
thanks. So, Natalia is a
mm,
two times Google developer expert, one in Angular and web technologies. She's working as enterprise solution architect
that's
and
right.
coming back from from the background of being a graphic design and architect, but as a craftsman.
Yeah.
So I believe you're going to show us this whole journey right now. True?
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to talk to you about my journey in tech to this day, and hopefully you'll find it very interesting. So when you give me the go, I'm ready.
Definitely. So stage is yours.
Thank you very much. So, like Sherry was saying, by the way, Sherry and I know each other for a couple of years, and she's one of the most amazing members of a community I've ever met. And yeah, if you have the chance to connect with her, please do. So my name is Natalia Venditto, and I'm here today, yes, like she said, to tell you about my journey to becoming an expert woman in technologies. And I call it extraordinary not because, yeah, because it is out of the ordinary, but you would be surprised about how many people um, have similar stories to tell. So we think that there is one only way into tech or into becoming an expert in tech, but in reality there are many ways as people that are out there. I really wanted to find some relevant photos to put here. And I know there is a photo of myself when I'm about 8 or 9 years old with a microphone. I'm on stage, I'm speaking at a school event, but I could not find it. I could not find it because I really don't know where that photo is at. And that's because when I was 24 years old, I moved to Europe. I am an immigrant, and same as it happens with many of us when we arrive to our destination, we do it with little baggage. We start anew, and most of our material belongings, most of the things that we cherish, including photographs sometimes, and our memories are left behind with sometimes the people that we love, right? And our roots. And it's scary, and of course, it's difficult at times, but even though I did not have photos and many of the other things I left behind, because I'm talking about the analog era back then, and it was paper and it was still heavy to carry with, I had my husband and I had a cat when we married at a relatively young age, and at least for today's standards, I guess. So today we're married for 18 years and we have two beautiful children. But going back to 2003, when I moved to Europe, I had not completed yet my education. So, like a lot of immigrants, I think I thought, okay, when I'm there, things will be easier, and I will pick up and finish my education there. But of course, we need to leave to eat, to pay the rent, the bills, and I took. The opportunity, or I had an advantage, and it was that back in Uruguay I had already worked as a graphic designer. I was studying graphic design, but I had also taken a crash course and started actually working as such, and I had 5 years of experience already when I got here. So it took me not so long, or it was not so long before I had an actual job, and I was working as a senior graphic designer in a small design agency. We edited a magazine that was printed, of course, back in the day. And most of our clients were in the real estate and development industries. It was a very, very sweet time, and I could push my creativity to the maximum. I would design corporate imagery and advertisement, and we would print those on stationery and clothing. And I don't know, of course, the magazine I was telling you earlier about. But soon enough, I realized that everything was moving online. right? It was a time when YouTube and Facebook were born. And I remember going to this marketing fair, like this great event, and people were talking about this new thing, social media. And I think that particular day they were telling, like, yeah, Facebook had gone from 500,000 users to 1 million. Just imagine now they have, I don't know, billions of people. So it was easy to guess where everything was going, and everything was going in the direction of online, right? So I came up with this idea of turning our magazine, our printed magazine, into an online portal. And I went to my boss and I told him, so let's do this. And he said, yeah, that sounds like a really great idea, but we need a developer to do that. And I already knew I wanted, or what I wanted to do next. I wanted to be that web developer. And I told him so. Well, I will be the developer. And to prove myself, to prove that I could do that, I developed our first website. And I was very, very much in love with those full screen flash sites. I don't know if you got the chance to ever see them. They were super dynamic. Everything was moving around and they were full size. And my first developer work was actually in ActionScript. It was a flash site, like I was telling you. I had so many design ideas because I was a designer and spent loads of time looking at other websites and portals about web design and looking for trends. And it was clear soon enough that animating those designs and putting them online was not so easy, right? And so I had to, or it was challenging, at least for somebody who came from a purely graphic design background. So I started consuming lots and lots of community authored content, tutorials, blogs, yeah, learning how to program and how to publish Flash websites. I admit I had very, very little leisure time those days because there was so much to learn. And I soon enough realized that it was not only about beautiful graphics and animations, they needed contact forms, they needed data persistence. So I had to learn not only ActionScript, I had to learn HTML, PHP, JavaScript, CSS, MySQL. I learned mostly from other kind and generous developers that pioneered and paved the way of what we know today as a strong developer network. The first developer and open source communities back in the day, and their help was massive. I would not be the professional I am today if it wasn't for these generous souls that put all that information online back in those days when there were no precedents, really. And yes, I would not have the opportunities I've had today without those resources either. So hold on that thought, right? As soon as we started selling advertisement online and our brand new portal online, right? Our magazine turned into a portal online. All our clients started asking us if we could create or develop their websites. And things were getting a little bit out of hand for me. Just imagine being a single developer in a very small agency, the noob developer, by the way. I could not code all the requirements. It was impossible for me to do all that alone. And also sites needed hosting, they needed domain configuration. So I needed to learn all that. I needed to learn more and more. And it was not only about front end or just Flash and animations anymore, right? That was about the time when my daughter was born. I had to learn a CMS to speed up development and to become more productive, and obviously develop more powerful applications that allowed our clients to author their content because they wanted to put their own content online and not just have static pages that I was hard coding. So I started with Joomla back in the day, and then I learned WordPress, and then finally I stuck to Drupal. And I learned about infrastructure. I learned about Apache and how to configure DNS records. I learned about how to write htaccess rules. And of course, being so busy, being a self-taught full-time developer and a webmaster was called back in the day, a mother and a wife, I had zero time to go back to school again. So I had to prioritize, right? And then the crisis hit us hard. It hit us globally, particularly the real estate industry in Spain was very, very damaged back in the, I think it was between 2007 and 2011. And the agency I worked for finally closed business and I lost my job. So I started freelancing for after a while. And it was obviously even harder than before because the more I knew, I knew nothing. There were even threats out there. I learned that the hard way when I had to patch around a dozen sites overnight for an open SSL vulnerability exploit called Heartbleed while I was breastfeeding my second child. And soon enough, I realized my way of working was unsustainable also and hard. I knew nothing about version control, and deploying remotely for me was uploading a full new version of files via FTP. So I was not as productive as I could be. And yeah, because I was not implementing good practices in many areas and keeping up, learning more was harder and harder. There was so much to learn. It was obvious I wasn't capable of, grabbing all that. So much to do as a freelancer. I was everything. I was a salesperson. I was the web designer, the back office lady, the project manager, the requirements engineer. I was a site reliability engineer, the infra woman, the developer, the tester, the content author, the post sales support, and yeah, the one trying to collect the payments as well. So of course, aside as a mom and a wife and still the student trying to get better, I had absolutely no life or literally no life. And that's when I decided to apply to get a job as a developer working for a tech company. And I was terrified. I think I never had imposter syndrome so much as that time. I thought I am never going to achieve this. Who will want me? I have no CS degree. I remember freaking out reading words in the postings like software engineer or IT in relation with the jobs. And yes, it was because I had learned all that on my own. And at that point, and looking back, I realized that I had put about 50 websites online all on my own. And I had happy customers that loved working with me and really relied on me and were super happy. But my fear was greater than the realization of what I had accomplished. It did not let me see how good I was. And yet I applied to a few of those job postings that I saw. And guess what? I got two offers, not one, but two. And I remember not being able to sleep that night because I was terrified. Again, I was thinking, well, I do a good job. Maybe they will fire me in 2 weeks because they will realize that I learned everything on my own and I have so many gaps. They will realize I'm an imposter, right? But 7 years later, I'm still working for the same company. I accepted, well, the same company I accepted the offer from. And I was hired back in the day as a professional level front-end software engineer. And now I have gone through two promotions to both senior and then principal. And now I am in the role of principal solutions architect, like Sherry said earlier. I have achieved the grade of associate director with our company. I am part of the leadership, and I act in roles such as lead link, which is part of our holacratic organization. Like our company is not organized in hierarchies; it is organized in circles, and every circle has a lead link. And for the front end development pathway or community, I am the lead link. And I am also a developer advocate. So I have massive amounts of technical responsibility at the moment. And my code is part of leading brand platforms. I have designed systems. I have mentored and led teams of dozens of developers to this day and work with them together to put online sites worth millions of euros. Additionally, in 2016, I started public speaking more often and with more intensity. First internally in my company, then for large external conferences. I started writing more content online, which I had already started doing in 2011. And do you remember when I asked you, hold on to that thought of giving back to the community? I wanted to give back to the community. That was something that was in the back of my mind all along. I wanted to give back to those that helped me grow into the technical professional I am today, and help me achieve all that I achieved indirectly or directly, right? In 2018, I joined the Women Tech Makers in Barcelona. So we organized the International Women's Day, and we also organized several meetups, and we help other women go into public speaking, for example. And in February 2020, I was given the Azure Heroes Badge for Inclusive Leader. In April 2020, I joined the Google Developer Experts Program, like Sherry said before, also as an expert in Angular and in web technologies. And ever since, I have participated, I think, of over 30 online events during these pandemics. Educating developers on best practices, on software architecture patterns, on JavaScript programming, on Angular programming, on accessibility and performance, and other important and relevant topics for the web community. So was it easy? No way. It was not easy. Did I feel like giving up? Never. I never felt like giving up. And now I am in a position right now of advising women how to get their dream job in tech, even if their path was also extraordinary, if it was different, if it was not the one that is considered the normal, or the, I don't know, the right path. And I know this is a bit bound to character and nature, and it's difficult to give advice that works as a Swiss knife. And it's valid for every woman out there, or every person part of a minority. However, these are my personal guidelines and things that worked for me, and maybe some of these ideas will work for you as well. So let me share them with you. While you're looking for a job in tech, as a person with a background other than computer sciences, and this is also useful for people that have studied computer sciences as well, I think, always do your research. Now, when I say research, you can go to any site, like, I don't know, Glassdoor or any other review site, and read whatever other employees talk about the company, but take everything with a grain of salt, of course. But also, companies will find you very interesting if you research, for example, their websites. If you know exactly when the company was founded, what exactly they do, what they offer. And when you go to their websites, also explore their careers section, see how they or what they provide to their employees, what kind of policies they have, especially for women. See if there is diversity, if there are diversity of backgrounds listed in their texts, or how they describe themselves. And then you can find a little bit more about their culture. And you can also ask questions to the recruiters if you wish to, or you decide you're going to apply for a job with them. You can ask any kind of questions to the recruiters. Don't be shy about it. Ask them how many women they have there. Ask them if they usually hire people from other backgrounds, if that is super important for them or not, if they offer flexibility, if they offer childcare, how many women do they employ. Check the profile of these women or minorities on LinkedIn and see how happy they are about working for this company. And also check the rotation, like for how long the employees have been working there, because that gives you a hint of the general happiness for the people working at a company. Also important, go for the job even if you don't satisfy all the requirements. This is something that I have read a lot about, that women and people from minorities tend not to apply for a job if they don't satisfy all the bullet points in the posting. um, you should still go for it if you feel you will do a good job and you feel that you are qualified for the job, even if you don't, satisfy each one of those requirements. And sometimes are nice to have, and they just don't write it in that way. And in the end, if you apply and they read your CV and they find you interesting, they're going to contact you anyway, and they know you already have it. So it's good to always apply regardless of not meeting 100% the listed requirements. Finally, ask them all the questions you deem important. There is nothing such as a silly question. Most interviewers will give you 5 minutes at the end of each interview, if you are already in the process, for you to ask them questions. So use those 5 minutes very well. Ask them about how they go about their day, what they do, what they love the most about their culture, and ask them also maybe some uncomfortable questions like, what do you not love about the culture in your company? What would you change? Because there's always room for improvement, and a culture of self-criticism and auto feedback is also a good culture. So this is something you can do to identify if that's a company you want to join, and then make an educated decision. When you already have the job, if you pass the interviews and you got an offer and you accepted it, find mentors. That's super important, especially if you are a more junior profile. Everyone has some strengths and some weaknesses, but discovering them sometimes takes a lot of introspection. So ask other people to help you define goals, because if you come from a different background, maybe you can use that help to identify those gaps that you have and focus on them. Also find allies, find people that identify with you and you with them, and they will support you and open doors for you. And once you've found those weaknesses that we were talking about earlier, don't let them define you. Like, everyone has room for improvement. Weaknesses are a temporary thing, and it's not carved in stone either. So what is your weakness today could be your strength tomorrow if you put the right amount of work in overcoming them. And finally, don't think there are hidden rules that prevent anyone from different backgrounds to make progress. Regardless of if you have studied something completely unrelated, you should have the same opportunities to grow inside of a company than anyone else. And if you don't, it's because perhaps the culture of that company doesn't really focus on diversity, and then maybe you need to reconsider if you want to be part of that culture. Another thing I get asked a lot about is, how do you become a public speaker? And first and foremost, you don't need to know everything about a topic or to be considered a super expert to go and talk about a topic. Just find something that you're really passionate about, learn it more in depth, and share your knowledge. And that's all it takes. You would be surprised about how much you learn when you are putting together a presentation for others. So it's a great way of learning and becoming an expert. Also, it's a good idea, like we mentioned earlier, to find a mentor in this case as well, or somebody with at least a little bit more experience in public speaking, so you can rehearse with them and they can help you refine your slides or your presentation. But also take their feedback with a grain of salt, because I remember about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I did a presentation on HTTP2, and then I did a rehearsal with a colleague. It was a 1-hour presentation, and at the end of it, he told me, like, you know what, I think it's super boring. And I was mortified because the presentation was the next day, and I had literally no time to do any changes. And I just followed my heart, and I said, like, I think it's a great presentation. I'm going to do it like this anyway. And everyone loved it. I got amazing feedback, and it was a point of inflection in my career as a public speaker. So, get a mentor or do rehearsal with people, but don't take their feedback very personally. If you feel like it's a good presentation, go with it. Also, when you're on stage, sometimes people from different backgrounds than computer sciences are terrified to be asked questions that they don't know how to answer. This is also true for people with a computer sciences background. Um, that happens all the time. At least for me, I've done so many conferences, and there is always a moment when somebody asks you a question that you don't know how to answer. That's completely normal. What you should do is try to deflect it, and invite perhaps that person or the audience to research with you and find that answer together, right? And finally, humans love stories. They love stories they can relate to. So, no matter if you will talk about a technical topic or not, connect with your audience at a human level, and the rest usually goes super smoothly. And yes, this is my little or condensed story of 15 years in tech, and how I went from being a graphic designer to being a solutions architect, and a public speaker and a developer expert. So thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed. Hi,
Definitely we
Sherry.
did. Hi. Definitely we did enjoy, and I love the picture of Copenhagen that you have there.
Yeah, I put it on purpose because I knew you would love it.
I really loved listening to your presentation, and I'm happy that with all you've been through, you never gave up, and you actually that you keep telling people also that to continue and get the feedback, but with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
So we have one question here. We had two. One was about the public speaker that you already answered, and
Okay.
the other one is that we all know that especially as a front end developer with a technology and trends is so difficult to keep up, and also it's difficult to actually to choose what to stick with, and then with our priorities that what to learn. So how do you handle that part?
Well, that's something I learned precisely when I was working alone, and it's that you need to prioritize. And what is a priority to you? It's what you need to apply immediately. So even when we want to know everything, and especially front-end developers, there are so many frameworks, there are so many new trends, and you want to know it all because it's fun, right? Learning something new, it's always fun. But what I would suggest is, for front-end developers to focus on learning very well HTML, to learning very well JavaScript, like vanilla JavaScript, and CSS, right? And then if you get a job, it may be that this job requires for you to know React or to know Angular. Then you can learn. If you have a very well and solid base in JavaScript, it's going to be easier to learn any other pattern that is connected to a particular framework. So also consider that um, the focus changes from project to project, even inside the same company. Like in my company, we have some projects in React and some projects in Angular, and then developers are changing projects all the time. So in the end, you can learn while you do, but don't spend all your time trying to learn something new. Also leave some time for relaxation, for yourself, for taking care of yourself. And again, try to learn the basics, and the rest it's going to be easier. Much easier. Yeah.
That's true. Thank you very much for the nice presentation, and yes, hope to see you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.